Hi guys, welcome to another edition of the recap. It's the season finale, that is the last episode in the first series of the recap. Today we're looking at Test Match Sabina Park, Stewart Brown. I am Jamain Hatton, and today is the 28th day, in fact the 29th. It's midnight, just around midnight on the 28th, so 29th day of January in the year 2018. Who is Stuart Brown? Stuart Brown, as we know from the previous poem, is a lecturer and editor as well as a poet. He was born in 1951 in the United Kingdom. He traveled extensively to the Caribbean as well as Africa, and he spent most of his time traveling the Caribbean particularly. But though he spends a lot of time traveling to the Caribbean, he often writes his poems as though he's an outsider, and we will see exactly what that is in this poem here, Test Match Sabina Park. So let's go straight into that. Test Match Sabina Park, Stuart Brown, season finale. Test Match Sabina Park, Stuart Brown. Proudly wearing the rosette of my skin, I strut into Sabina. England boycotting excitement bravely. Something badly amiss. Cricket? Not the game they play at Lord's. The crowd. Whoever saw a crowd at a cricket match? Archaic vociferous partitions, quick to take offence. England, 68 for none at lunch. What are the batting that man? Them can't play cricket again? Perhaps them should have borrowed Lawrence Rowe. And on it goes, the wicket slow, as the batting and the crowd restless. Hey white boy, how you brothers in the send me to sleep, sir? You pay money to watch this foolishness? So I try to explain in my ham-shell drawl about conditions in Kent, about sticky wickets and muggy days and the monsoon season in Manchester, but fail to convince even myself. The crowd's loud abusing drives me out. Skulking behind a tarnished rosette, somewhat frayed now, but unable quite to conceal a blushing nationality. Test match Sabina Park. A Caribbean person would know exactly what a test match is. For those of you who do not know, the test match is the longer version of a cricket game. We're accustomed to hearing about 2020. You're accustomed to hear about one day international, ODIs, and so on. But the test match is a longer version of the game. I think it spans over about 5 days. I hope that's correct. Anyway, yeah. So test match Sabina Park. It's about a test match being played at Sabina Park. For some reason, I want to think that it's not a test match necessarily, but one day international. But the way they were playing, the way the Englishmen were playing, made it seem like a test match. Don't quote me on that. I'm just saying. I'm just throwing that out there. You tell me what you think about that. So Sabina Park is a stadium in Jamaica. So we see Stuart Brown going to Jamaica to visit or to witness a cricket match. The poet or the speaker in this poem is obviously an Englishman, and I told you earlier that Stuart Brown often visits the Caribbean and he writes out poems as though he's an outsider. So here he writes brilliantly about an encounter he had at a test match. So he appears to be going into this Sabina Park all proud and big of himself. So we are seeing the words here, and let's try to understand before we get into it. We can see the standard English of this Englishman, and we can also see the non standard dialect of the Jamaican people. What we must understand from that is that it's as though two cultures are clashing. It's as though we're having a clash of the English culture versus the Jamaican patois. I hope that's the correct pronunciation of that. It's as though two cultures are clashing, and only one culture can be successful at the end of the day. Let's understand. Let's see which of those culture will win. right? So it says, proudly wearing the rosette of my skin. Imagine you start off by saying, proudly wearing the rosette of my skin. What does that tell us? It's as though he's very proud of himself. There's an aura, there's an air. He feels as though this white man is superior. The rosette of my skin, the color of his skin makes him think that he is above everybody else in the pavilion. And he's walking into Sabina. England boycotting excitement bravely. And suddenly, as soon as he walks in the ground, as soon as he walks in the pavilion, the England team, the English team that he was actually going to back, was losing. Or at least they were doing poorly at this time. Boycotting excitement, he calls it. It's as though they were not fun to look at. There were no boundaries being hit and so on. You're quite familiar with Chris Gale, who's also Jamaican. When he's batting, most of the times they're going to be sixes and fours and exciting, right? So he's saying that the England team is boycotting excitement bravely. It's as though they weren't doing as well as he would have hoped for them to do. Cricket, not the game played at Lords. So he goes on to show us that it was different in the Caribbean when compared to where he's from, England. Right away, we see that comparison between not just the Caribbean, but the Caribbean and England, where he's from. Caribbean, England, trying to draw a contrast here. Whoever saw a cricket at the cricket match, whoever saw a crowd at the cricket match, caged, and that's a good statement there, cage. So it's as though the people in the Caribbean, yes, it might literally be a fence around the cricketers, as well, a fence separating the crowd from the cricketers, the players. But what he's trying to paint to us here is as though the people in the crowd, he is one of them, yes, but the people in the crowd are caged animals. So he's comparing the people of the crowd to cage uncivilized people then. Uncivilized people at this cricket match, witnessing this cricket match. And he calls them vociferous partitions, as though they are boisterous. I don't know if that's a word, but I often say that. Uh, are as though they're biased and they're loud in their attempt and they're quick to take offense. He says quick to take offense. So probably he said something and people were offended and they were quick to jump down his throat. If you understand what I'm saying there, it's as though whatever he said and they were offended at and they were quick to insult him, they were quick to pick him up, they were quick to pounce on what he was saying. And it says England 68 for none at lunch. So the half of the match, they were 68 for none. And we are seeing now an introduction of this Jamaican patois. What sort of batting that man? Them can't play cricket again. Perhaps, meaning perhaps, they should have borrowed Lawrence Rowe. We know Lawrence Rowe is a famous, brilliant West Indies batsman. So he's saying, the Jamaicans are saying, the persons in the crowd, they're saying that they should have borrowed Lawrence Rowe. And that's the only way they could have win the match, or that's the only way they can see some excitement in the game. So the people here, they are not inferior. They don't feel mediocre at the presence of this white man. Instead of feeling inferior, they're challenging him. They're saying that, you know what? You are no better than the people out there, those white guys out there. You're all the same thing. Good for nothing. Boring. Something badly amiss, as we can see here. So they're saying what? They're not reducing themselves to the presence of this white man, but instead they're saying, you guys should probably borrow one of us to make yourselves something. This stanza starts with, and on it goes, and on it goes. This and on it goes suggests, can both suggest the batting as well as the behavior of the spectators uh, continues. It's as though whatever the batting was before, poor, it continued. And however the spectators were before, rowdy, rude, that continues as well. So just as the slow batting continue, the crowd continue. Alright? And it goes on to say the wicket slow, the batting. So here is this guy justifying, trying to justify why England is performing badly. So he's saying the wicket slow and the batting and the crowd restless. And it says now we see that classic Jamaican patois. Hey white boy, how your brothers them that send me to sleep, sir. They're trying to show you that the game is dull and the game is boring. That is how the Englishmen are operating. That's how the Englishmen are batting. And then there is a nice, good old Caribbean subteeth coming from one of the spectators. Me pay money to watch this foolishness. And yeah, so you get the idea of the frustration in the spectators' eyes. Because when you go to a cricket match, you go for excitement, you go for fun, you go for boundaries after boundaries, you go for tantalizing or close finishes, and you want to know what's going to happen. You want to have the best out of your money. So there they were, me pay money to watch this foolishness. You're frustrated of that, right? And here this guy is now. So you see that nice patois there, that Jamaican patois coming out of that stanza, and now he's going in with his English standard language, his standard. What do I want to say here? We are now seeing his standard grasp of English. His dialect is so pronounced and so proper, and he's going into that now. So I try to explain in my Hampshire drawl. That's his language. He's trying to tell them, or he's trying to hint to us that he used the best of his accent to try and win them over. And if it were other places, he probably might have won the crowd over, because sometimes when there are foreign people around, and we often hear their accent, we try to want to sound like them. So here's this guy trying to sound all proper and all important with his English accent, thinking that the crowd would be won, or he would win the crowd over with this accent. But he's lying. He's not doing much at all. So with the accent, he's saying he's trying to justify why they're performing badly. He's trying to say that the conditions in Kent, the conditions in the United Kingdom is different to what they're accustomed to. The conditions in United Kingdom is different to what the English team is experiencing there at Sabina. And it says about sticky wickets and muggy days. So it's trying to say that the weather and the conditions there is just not what they're accustomed to. And because they're not accustomed to it, they're having a hard time playing. And then he goes on to now insult the intelligence of the Caribbean people. He says the monsoon season in Manchester. Monsoon is actually not a season in Manchester. Monsoon is actually of the Asian people. So it's an Asian phenomenon. The monsoon generally is a weather period that has a high amount of wind, or and change swiftly from wind to thunder and lightning and so on. So that is common to Asia. And the fact that he's saying monsoon season of Manchester, he's trying to insult the intelligence of these Caribbean people, of these people in Jamaica there. And it's as though that he didn't think they would have actually known what monsoon was, and that would actually make them believe what he's saying, that they're just not accustomed to the conditions in Sabina. But he goes on to say, but fail to convince even myself. It's as though all the work he did, all the lying he did, and that's generally what white people do. I don't mean that like that. That is generally what people do. They lie to make their situation believable. They lie to make their situation somewhat easy to believe. All right, so he's lying here to say that the monsoon season of Manchester, there's no monsoon season of Manchester, trying to convince the people of the Caribbean, that their condition is just not what the white men are accustomed to. He goes on to say the crowd's loud abusing. You know what abusing is in the Caribbean? A Guyanese abusing. If a Guyanese abuse you, or a Jamaican abuse you, or a person from Trinidad abuses you, it's a good abusing, huh? But this abusing, the word abusing is actually the starting with that apostrophe there. The apostrophe shows that A is omitted, A is left out. So it's really abusing. Abuse is therefore the word abuse. So there, the crowd's loudness is really an abuse to this white man, right? It's driving him out. So they're driving out that air that he came with. They're driving out that arrogance that he came with, and they're now making him see that you are not so superior. You are not so important anymore. The pride and the superiority that you came with is really not something that can influence us. The pride you came with, the superiority that you came with, the air you came with, is not something that will make us feel less of ourselves, sulking behind that tarnished rosette. So let's go back to this word rosette again. The rosette really is a medal that you get in the military when you do some amount of good work. So really, there's a circular badge comprising of a medal presented to soldiers and knights from the British Empire. So he's saying that it's all proper to be white, and but now the rosette, that award that he got for being white, that award has tarnished. What does that mean? It means the dialect, the proper accent that he came with, failed miserably to win over the Guyanese. Not the Guyanese. Why am I saying Guyanese? The dialect he came with failed to win over the Jamaican people. So he is as though his whiteness has tarnished, somewhat fade, and now unable quite to conceal the blushing nationality. So that is a brilliant last few lines there. It's as though the spectators' language, like their cricketers, have proven to be somewhat. Okay, so let's go this way again. So the fact that the spectator was actually the spectators, this all of them, the Jamaican people, their language was failed to be impacted. Their language was not impacted by this foreigner, by this visitor, and in somewhat of a sense, it is as though the Jamaican people won over this white man. The culture, the way he talked, is not the way they were talking. So it is as though their words, their culture, won on this very said day. So he goes on to talk about how it was unable quite to conceal the blushing identity. The blushing identity tells that he was really ashamed. You know, you get pink when you're ashamed. He was embarrassed. He was embarrassed to be white. He was embarrassed to be an Englishman. And he's embarrassed simply because the cricket team was not doing well. So here this guy was at the start of the poem, coming in all proud of himself, big. Okay, I'm coming to see some good old licking go to this West Indies team today because England is going to beat them so terribly. So here he came in with this big chest, feeling all superior. And now at the end, we can see a contrast in the mood. So he came in all sophisticated, he came in all superior, he came in all arrogant, and at the end, he has the spirit he came in with has tarnished, and now he's left embarrassed. embarrassed at his nationality, embarrassed of being an Englishman. So let me see my notes here. What else I have to tell you here? Uh, so he came in with that badge of honor, that badge of rosette we were talking about earlier, and it's as though that badge, BADGE, had lost its luster, so it's no more significant, and now he is just embarrassed. The embarrassment is both a national and a racial one. Because remember, the team is losing. And if the team is losing, it's a national embarrassment. And it's a racial one because the white guy think he was important. The white guy thought he was significant. He thought he was a big man. But yet, these black people, these Caribbean people, resisted to change, resisted to mimic his attitude, and resisted to resist the impact he had on them. And as a result, not only was he embarrassed and pushed out of the out of the crowd, but his team lost. The English team lost that day. At the start of the poem, the mood was an upbeat one. It was a great feeling of pride and nationality. He was remarkably proud of himself. But later, we see a mocking or comical mood. So we feel that as we read. Remember, the mood is how you feel generally, and the tone is how the writer was. And haughty was how the writer was, condescending, scornful. He was like as though he was mocking these people just until they give him a good old Guyanese cut tail. I'm saying Guyanese. I don't know why I'm saying Guyanese. I'm sorry. A good old Caribbean cut tail. Yeah, the team lost. Themes we can compare this poem to, or compare this poem under, would be discrimination, places, sports, culture, nationality, whatever you want to do in terms of comparing this poem to another poem. Summary. So here we had a prideful Englishman coming to view a cricket match in the Caribbean. During that match, his spirit was killed. He only came in with this nice, boastful attitude. Well, the spirit was killed by the slowness of the English batting. All right. At the end of the match, he leaves amazed at the West Indian culture, and with that, he appeared as though his tail was between his legs. And that's a nice proverb there. If you don't know what I mean, Google that. I'm quite sure you can get some information on that. And that's a wrap for season one. Keep subscribed, like this video, comment, let me know what you think of the review. I'm sorry for the stuttering throughout this here. My voice is going, and it's 1 o'clock in the morning, so I'm tired. Goodbye.